Hey, I want to welcome you to another episode of Money Matters Top Tips for Success, where each and every day I bring on new business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and have them share their top tips for success with you. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, moneymatterstoptips.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Leia Ruseva on the line, and she is the co-founder over at EllisX. Leia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Adam.
So I'm excited to get more into what you're doing over at EllisX and how you're helping your clients. But before we do that, let's get a little bit further into your background. So how'd you get started in business and as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that I wanted to be an entrepreneur pretty early on in my life. Like, I just did not realize that was the case. I was always fascinated by technology, and, I grew up in Bulgaria in a post-communist country. So I always dreamed of going to the U.S. to study because that's where technological innovation came from, and I wanted to be a part of that. So when I was in high school, I told my parents that I had that desire, and they thought it was impossible for me to do that. So they were like, no, you're delusional. This cannot happen, so you should not do it. But I was stubborn, so I decided that I would work summer jobs to pay for my college applications, and I did that. And eventually it paid off because I ended up getting a full scholarship to Brandeis University, which is 30 minutes outside of Boston. And that's how I moved to the U.S. to start college. And during my first year, I was kind of exploring. Like, I thought for a while that maybe I should go into diplomacy. But I was back in Bulgaria for Christmas, and Steve Jobs' bio had just come out. So my mom gave me that book for Christmas. And throughout the spring semester, I was reading it. So it was a story that resonated really deeply with me and made me take a look into myself. And I was like, well, I love creating new things. I like making something out of nothing. So I think a good career for me would be to go into entrepreneurship. Now, how do you do that? I actually ended up staying all 4 years of college. And then I figured, well, as an entrepreneur, you need to know how to do one thing very well if you want to be successful, and that's to sell. So I intentionally started looking for jobs that had a sales aspect to them because I wanted to learn that. And I ended up getting a job in business development at a mid-sized tech company in Boston. And I was the very first business development hire over there.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love your story. So, just so much to get to where you're at today. It's very inspiring. And there's some people that are just getting started right now that are, they're new entrepreneurs. Maybe they're just graduating college and they're listening to this right now. And what kind of advice would you give to that new entrepreneur really on just getting started? They're just getting out of college and they're thinking about how to launch their idea.
So a couple of things. I would say, first of all, read and listen to all the startup and entrepreneurship content you can get your hands on. But maybe even more important than that, build out your network, because ultimately it all comes down to people. And you need to surround yourself with people that inspire you and are always willing to help out and give you good feedback, but even more so people that are going to be honest with you. So when you're working on something that is probably not a great idea, they will come and tell you. And when you are thinking of an idea, you should go and collect feedback. That's the very first thing that you want to do, because you need to make sure that you are building something that people really need and they really want to use.
I love that advice. And I think that's also a great transition. Let's switch it up a bit, Leia. I want to get into what you're doing over at EllisX. So first, tell me a little bit more about the business, please.
Yeah, so EllisX is a platform that connects startups with visibility opportunities such as media and public speaking opportunities. We are a relatively young company. We got started this June, and the company actually originated from a side project that I had started in the fall of 2017 called Torres project, and that was all about providing a platform for visibility for immigrant entrepreneurs and celebrating the achievements that immigrants have had in the United States and how much they've contributed to the economy. So from that, I ended up having a lot of conversations with immigrant founders who were interested in getting more visibility, but when you are an immigrant, you're at the early stages of building a company, you likely don't have the network that it takes to get the right people to notice you. So I would always be asked for help. So I started connecting people with other folks in my network and making those connections transpire. And then I dug a little bit deeper into the problem, and it turned out that visibility is a problem for all startups, no matter if the founder is American or an immigrant. And American founders were getting very excited about this prospect of getting visibility. And, it all comes back to talking to potential users and collecting feedback. And that's how we realized that this was symptomatic of a bigger challenge in the visibility industry, which hasn't changed since the beginning of the 20th century when it was started. So my co-founder and I decided to create a platform that allows startups to connect with the people that are the most likely to tell their stories and change the way news is shared.
So I know, there's some people listening to this right now that don't, and I know what you're doing, and I understand how important it is. But there's some people listening to this right now that maybe they fall in that wheelhouse of people that should be your clients, but they don't actually know that. So meaning, how important is it I don't want to assume that everybody knows this. How important is it for these early stage startups to really connect with journalists and media and really start getting exposure for their brand early on versus waiting until launch day or waiting until everything's done and out there and then starting their campaign? Because I know there's a difference there. So can you comment on that a little, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I don't think that anything is ever done with a startup. Like, it's always a work in progress, and you're always going to feel like your product is not good enough, like it's not ready. But in the end of the day, you need to put it out there and make sure that you collect that initial feedback from users. So we actually launched in about 2 months of starting the company, simply because we wanted to understand how people would be interacting with the product and what we needed to change. But as far as visibility goes, I think that once you have your product in the market, once you have revenue and initial customers, it's important to start building those visibility opportunities and making sure that you're getting yourself and your name out there, because that's how more users will find you. They will be browsing the web for relevant information, and they may stumble upon your company because of a backlink or because being featured in an article or a podcast helps with your SEO. It also helps connect with potential partners who may notice you the same way, or with potential investors. It helps to kind of build credibility through a third party that's willing to interview you and get on these people's radar.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I may be biased here, but I just know, because I know from the back end. So I know that the people that I brought on my show, I get emails all the time about connections they've made through the show, about inquiries they got based off of being on the show. And so I see this stuff all the time. And so when I think about if I were in that stage and not in this business and I was creating something different, I'd be like, yeah, it probably make a lot of sense to link up with a company like EllisX to make sure that I get my name out there and I connect with the right people so that the right people are hearing my message and also crafting that story. So the most important thing I found in being in this business is that it's all about the story. And the bottom line is, if you're not crafting your own story, then somebody else will. So you have to be methodical about the way you tell your story and through what media channels and how you present your business. Because, again, if you don't, well, all it takes is for somebody else to want to pick something up. And then at that point, it's kind of hard to play catch-up when trying to craft your story and undo maybe what was already done. So be really in charge and own your story.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And different people have different motivations for starting different companies and doing what they're doing in life. So I think that a very powerful differentiator is, why are you doing what you're doing? What drove you to discover that problem, and why are you so passionate about that? Because passion is one of those things that's very personal and nobody else can replicate.
That's awesome. So, Leia, if somebody's listening to this and they want more information on EllisX or to connect, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, so they can always go on our website. That would be www.ellisx.com, or email us at info@ellisx.com. We reply to all the emails that we receive via this specific email, because we want to make sure that we're in touch with people who are interested in what we're doing and potential customers. We're always looking for feedback. So that would be one of the best ways to reach out and connect.
Perfect. Well, hey, Leia, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and all the great work you're doing over at EllisX. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes store, share this with your friends and family. I mean, do all those great things we do to support our podcasters. I really do appreciate it. And Leia, thanks again for coming on the show.